Once it is gone, there will be nothing to stop a cascading loss of nearly all the glaciers in West Antarctica. That is why Holland wanted to come to this place, to drill a half-mile hole through the ice to see what's happening underneath. It's never been done before, and it very nearly did not happen this Antarctic summer.
The motto for me is have no expectations. If you have expectations, you will be deeply disappointed.
In November, they flew to Christchurch, New Zealand. Within a few days, they were on a U.S. Air Force Air Mobility Command C-17, stuffed to the gills with scientists, support crews, and gear. After a 5-hour-long flight due south 2,300 miles, they landed at McMurdo Station, headquarters for the National Science Foundation in Antarctica. But they were still more than 1,300 difficult miles away from their camp on Thwaites, and the weather was terrible, and the airplanes kept breaking down. What was to be a 1-week stop in McMurdo for briefings, training, and practice became more than a month. By the time they got to Thwaites, all the weather and mechanical trouble left them barely enough time to do their science. But safety first.
We're out in the grounding zone for Thwaites Glacier right now.
A team led by geophysicist Seth Campbell of the University of Maine surveyed the area. He explored some nearby caves.
Things have never been seen, probably.
And towed a ground-penetrating radar on a sled to identify perilous crevasses beneath the surface.
If you zoom in here, we can show you what they look like. The way radar works is we're imaging layers in the snowpack below us. So we can see there's a crevasse here, and we can see there's actually a crevasse here as well.
Others were more obvious. Working on the edge of a glacier is dangerous business. A wrong step would be fatal.
Well, I think we'll go around this one.
They also looked beneath the ice using another technique called seismic reflection, ironically often used by the oil industry to find places to drill. But in this case, they're making an underground map to ensure they are where the ice transitions from sitting on the rock to floating in the ocean, the so-called grounding line. They detonated some small buried explosives akin to fireworks. Lizzie Klein is a doctoral candidate at Penn State.
When we set off that explosive charge, that creates a bunch of seismic energy that radiates down through the ice to the bed, to the bottom of your shelf. Any sort of change in material will trigger a reflection that comes back to us. And so this way we can see whether there's water or there's sediment or there's rock beneath the ice.
The reflections they recorded showed the ice, the seafloor, and a thin column of water. A bullseye, exactly where the team wanted to drill. They don't use drill bits here, just hot water, nearly boiling. The rig requires several aviation fuel-powered burners attached to a long spool of hose.
We see the drill rig, and then the hose goes down to a hole in the ground here, right there.
Is it risky, ultimately, to the glacier itself?
No, because it's such a small fraction of the glacier. We're like literally touching 1/1,000,000% of the glacier.
When they finally got started drilling, a big storm blew in.
Well, you really cannot see, nothing visible at all. Just stay in here for the day.
The team had to hunker down for 3 days. The timing was not looking good.
If we don't get the drilling started tomorrow, then we run into a whole series of problems. Basically, there's another storm coming in about 3 days, but we need 3 days to get the drilling set up and done.
But when the storm passed, the good weather held, and things fell into place quickly. After 36 hours of hot water drilling, they broke through the bottom of the ice to the ocean a half-mile beneath. They lowered in a remotely operated vehicle called IceFin, which provided some unprecedented images of the ice-covered shore of a glacier. Funded by NASA, the device was built by a team from Georgia Tech, led by astrobiologist Brittany Schmidt.
One of the things that we don't know very well is exactly how glaciers move and how the very base of the glacier operates. So when we get to see it right up close, right where it starts to hit the ocean, we're seeing the freshest material.
They collected sediment cores and dropped in instruments that measure water salinity, temperature, and turbulence. It turns out the water at this particular spot is very still. Aurora Bazinski is a grad student at NYU.
Since turbulence is below detectable levels, that means that there isn't as much mixing as potentially we would have expected. And so what that means is that the warm water is mostly staying near the bottom and not necessarily making its way up to the ice.
That might seem like good news, but for the first time, scientists have confirmed what they suspected. The ocean under Thwaites is warm, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above freezing, too warm for the ice to remain stable.
First of all, I want to weigh in on this. I commend these people, these scientists that done this, because they was literally sacrificing life and limb if things did not go according to plan. I don't know how much the project cost. I'm sure it was way up in the hundreds of thousands, if not the millions, just to bring a crew and equipment out to do this. But the fact of the matter is, this helps to verify in any stretch of the imagination, not just atmospheric global warming that's happening from the outer layers of the greenhouse effect pertaining to it getting warmer, but this verifies that the oceans themselves, the water, is getting warmer than it's supposed to be. And because of it, it is melting the ice at a rapid rate. I have said all along, whenever you go to draining this much energy out of the earth that God put there for a purpose, and his purpose wasn't put for you and me to ride around in a nice pretty car wearing our cool sunglasses looking like super cool. That oil was put there for a preservative of a heat shield to prevent the heat from the center of the earth from expanding out to the outer layers of the earth. What area do you think it's going to hit first? It's going to hit the deepest part of the oceans. These people went down a half a mile, which is unheard of, to dig a hole. A half a mile a half a mile in distance. And they measured the water and the temperature of the water, and this was the response that they got. Please listen to this one more time, because this is crucial to what we're dealing with on a catastrophic level. And of course, it reflects right back to the Bible, to where the Bible says that in the last days we will see things such as man has never ever seen before, either in the heavens or upon earth. And whenever it talks about peace up onto the planet, peace in the sense between mankind of not having wars is one type of peace. Peace with an individual having a peace of mind is a completely different set of standards of peace. Even Christ said that the world don't have peace as we have peace. Because we know that if something happens to us physically, spiritually, we're still going to be fine. But just because it talks about peace between wars and peace of mind doesn't mean that these events are not going to vastly approach upon to society. A matter of fact, if you'll study the teachings of Christ very, very in-depthly, it actually contradicts it to the degree of saying that as you shall see the days approaching, these events are going to occur pertaining to massive displacements either in the atmosphere or on the planet. So what we're seeing is not only scientifically alarming, But what we're seeing is also biblical alarming, pertaining to the teachings that Christ taught that would absolutely be catastrophic in the last days. Please, let's listen to this one more time.
It's a sobering moment, too. But for the first time, scientists have confirmed what they suspected.
For the first time. This is groundbreaking material. This is unprecedented. In other words, the President of the United States ought to give these people a medal for going out there and risking life and limb for doing this. But it helps to not only verify the problems that we're all facing as a society on a little bitty planet now that's getting smaller and smaller, but it helps to verify that the waters themselves are warming up. Listen to this.
The ocean under Thwaites is warm. 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above freezing.
Above
Too
freezing.
warm for the ice to remain stable. It's a
Above
sobering
freezing.
moment too, isn't it?
Yeah. Change happens, and this looks like a potential case for change going forward that could be quite impactful. You can probably change air temperature over the next century, but the ocean is such a big, sluggish creature that in a way, when it's doing what it's doing, it's not the kind of thing we can engineer and stop very easily.
Before they left, the team buried 5 GPS stations across the grounding line. They will gather precise data about the glacier's movement and thickness over the long, dark winter.
Thank you.
The MELT team plans to be back next year to recover that data and do more science. They hope this risky work at the edge of possible will help researchers make better forecast models, adding more facts to the growing fear. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Miles O'Brien.
We may be seeing, and I know this may sound crazy, but we may be seeing the last pioneering episode of the world's original creation right in front of our very eyes that is dissolving and going away. We may very well be seeing history unfolding on a scale that scientists cannot even imagine of what is going to continue to occur a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now. And the way that it looks, this is intensifying at least 10 times stronger, or 10 times quicker, or 10 times in comparison to what they originally thought and gave a analogy of, or gave a basically a prediction of back about 5 to 10 years ago. This is going to blow this completely out of the water. This information right here will blow all their theories pertaining to them predicting what is occurring worldwide completely out of the water. Once more, Al Gore, give or take about 30 years ago, seen these things unfolding. People in the state of Tennessee swore and be damned that Al Gore had lost his freaking mind, that he had turned into nothing more than a owl lover or a tree hugger, and it literally costed him the presidency here in the state of Tennessee. Between that and people telling lies about the Democrat Party of how they was going to go from house to house and confiscate everybody's guns, it literally costed Al Gore, that should have been our 4th Tennessee president, it literally costed him his presidency. And now, listen to me, and now, listen to me, and now we can see the development materializing right in front of our very own eyes. But I guarantee you, even by people looking at this and watching this, and watching my YouTube platform, you will still have people that'll walk around and shake their head and saying, oh, that's a bunch of bull. The world on the other side of the earth is generating more ice, and it's just a matter of it shifting. Oh, really? Oh, really? While you have steadily water levels increasing. This is your analogy? This is the best answer that the critics, that the doubters, that the unbelievers can come up with? Oh, it's shifting. There's nothing for it to shift to whenever the water below the ice is 3.6 degrees above freezing. Anybody knows that as that's doing that, even if the ice was not melting from the top, it's still going to be melting from the bottom. Why? Because the water does not support, the temperature of the water does not support the sustaining, the substantialness of sustaining the ice. And of course, the more objects that you put in the ocean, the more objects that you put in the sea, regardless whether it's a big tanker or it's a big vessel of some sort, it's just like anything else. The more you add to it, the more it's going to push the water table up more, in addition to the melting of the ice. So yeah, these coastal-lying areas, these islands, they're in trouble. They're in bigger trouble than what the professionals have even began to think about. People down in Florida, it's a very possibility that 10 years from now, there will be places in Florida that will be uninhabitable. Literally uninhabitable. And it may not take 10 years. At this rate, maybe closer to 5. At this rate, who knows? But what we're seeing in front of our very eyes is the fulfillment of prophecy of, as we shall see these things occurring, Jesus said to flee into the mountains. Get out of the low-lying areas. Flee to the mountains, he said, because of these things that are going to be occurring towards mankind, seeing sights up into the heavens and sights up into the earth, such as they have never seen before. This is outstanding. This is, whenever I say outstanding, I'm putting it in a degree of outstanding information that people are willing to sacrifice life and limb just so they can come back with this information. They need a medal. They need a medal.
A child's tantrum is rarely humorous, but a new and highly acclaimed
Well, if you think it's humorous, you need to watch some of the people in the White House. Anyways, I'm going to get off of that. I'm not going to go no further with that. That statement probably never should have been given. I'm sorry for making the statement. But it's really, it's not humorous to watch the President of the United States still being in denial about global change and global warming. It's not humorous at all. Especially at the expense of all of our lives. There has to be some sort of jarring, of being able to jar these doubters, these unbelievers. It has to be something to jar them, to make them understand that the world is drastically changing right up underneath our feet. And what in the hell are we going to do about it? Because, it's one thing to think, well, we're trying to save the generation below us pertaining to our children and our children's children. No, this actually may be to the point of saving not their generation or their generation that they have of their children's children, but this may actually evolve into trying to save our lives because of the occurrences that is vastly changing and evolving on a day-to-day level. I don't know what it's going to take to wake people up that we as a society are destroying this planet. And if we do not do something to contradict what we are doing, you haven't seen a tantrum. You haven't seen a tantrum pertaining to Mother Nature and the wrath that Mother Nature can produce. Good luck to all of us. And shalom.